think the biggest thing, and we've been talking about it a lot, but it just kind of like take it as it comes. Or like my dad told me when I spoke to him on the phone earlier this week, he's like, sometimes you just have to let life come to you. And instead of trying to like always control everything or like think that you have the answer, it's like, obviously do the best you can, but just slow things down a little bit and see what comes to you and what makes sense at the time. And I think for me, probably like the biggest thing I need to like really work on in the next year is just like letting go.
So thanks, dude. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, I just got to say something really quick. The third King's Pointer to interview here, but I'm not the best looking, probably the most overweight. But I don't know how I found myself here talking to you today, but really appreciate the opportunity. A little bit about myself. I'm transitioning from the Navy. I'm 34 and a half years old. Joe and I pretty much have been doing the same thing for the past 10 or so years. And be honest, like just going through the transition has been difficult. And listening to the previous podcasts, I've definitely taken something away. And so looking to provide my story, and hopefully it resonates with somebody else.
Dude, married, kids?
No kids. Married. Been married. Let's see. Oh, man, my wife's going to listen to this and scold me. We got paper married right before our deployment that we did. But then we had our actual wedding in 2023 in October. So,
where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Southern California. I grew up in Orange County in Laguna Beach. So I was a spoiled little brat.
Family still there?
My mom and dad are still there. My brother's still in Orange County. One younger brother.
Just you and your bro?
Yep.
What does your brother do?
My brother, he is in a debt consolidation job. So basically folks that like find themselves in unfortunate situations like credit card debt, he like helps them like figure that out.
Were you guys pretty close?
We have like about an 8-year age gap. Yeah. So we're close, but like at the same time, like not super close.
Yeah.
I'd say like growing up, like an 8-year age gap, I almost felt like I was kind of like a third parent in a weird way. But
are you good at keeping up with friends? Like, do you make phone calls?
Dude, I think we're all guilty of like maybe not being the best at that, and I'm definitely like one of those guys. But
I struggle with it. I'm trying to like consciously make time for it, but I was just wondering if you had any good techniques for me, any good habits.
Dude, one thing I've noticed though too is like as we've gotten older, like our peers start having families and stuff, so like their time's like harder. So I think it's a two-way street, man.
Yeah.
But personally, I think I should be better about making more calls or trying to connect with folks more.
Yeah, it's hard. It's always, every time I make one, I'm always like, that was extremely meaningful, and I'm glad I talked to them. I should do that more.
Yeah.
And then SoCal, do you go back to see the parents much?
Dude, I'd say I go back probably like at least once a year, maybe twice a year if I'm lucky. It's funny though, like as I've gotten older, as my parents have gotten older, like I definitely see the value in going back and like getting that time with them in person.
How old are they?
My dad,
or like roughly,
is in his mid 70s, and my mom's I think in her like early 60s. So,
do you guys do yearly trips? Have you ever carved out time? I know it's probably hard to do, but have you built that? And if not, is that something you're kind of looking forward to structuring in the next chapter?
So outside of like you're talking about like a family vacation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just the interest of the same conversation of like carving out time.
I think, dude, like with my previous job, it was like super difficult to do, and I would say like outside of the holidays, no, we never like really did like a family vacation. I will say my previous duty station, like being in China Lake, I got it like a good recharge. I was about 3 to 4 hours away from home, so that was great. That was a huge positive of that tour for me personally. It was just being able to go see my family more frequently. Yeah. But yeah, that's.
Are you and the wife thinking about kids?
We are thinking about kids. It's funny. I don't think there's any good time for kids. Part of me is like, man, should I have already started? Or the other part of me is like, man, I don't know if it's a good time to start. But no, that's a big reason why I'm transitioning from the military is to start a family and hopefully be an active participant.
Yeah, I'd be sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you listen to Teddy and Dave's podcast?
I did.
What you reached out to me after Dave's and said it was super cool to listen to. Was there something specific? I mean, obviously I know the answer because we talked, but what did you resonate with?
So, in my own transition process, man, I think like the biggest thing is when we're in our jobs currently, like you're currently in your training officer tour, like we're so busy. And so you don't really, you think about your transition and you prepare for the transition in terms of like all your applications to business school or airlines or whatever you're doing. But you're so consumed with your current job that you don't really think about the psychological impact of the transition and how much of this job has become our identity. And I definitely feel like I failed to acknowledge how much of the Navy and just like aviation community is my identity, whether I like it or not. It is. And working through that transition and listening to Dave and Teddy's or JT's podcast, I really kind of resonated with like a lot of the challenges. Specifically, this is all we've known for 10 plus years, and I've effectively have devoted my entire life to it and my family's life. My wife has moved with me now twice, and so there's a lot of sacrifices that we've made to be in this job, and like it's taken a lot of hard work, and it's not like you just snap your fingers and you're an F-18 fighter pilot, right? So I think leaving, as great as it feels and as good as we think it's going to be, there's a lot of, oh boy, did I make the right decision? Oh boy, I've worked so hard to get here. On top of that, we're so used to like being on a routine, or hey, I get a paycheck every 2 weeks, or hey, here's that golden path that both JT and Dave talked about. And when you go to the outside, you can be the most qualified person. You can be the prettiest guy or gal. You can be, again, like the most qualified. You still got to get hired. You still got to get an interview. You still got to do all these other things. And so you lose a lot of control in the transition process. And with where I think I've been struggling the most with this process is the unknowns. And, you could have a lot of good things lined up. And I think I do have a lot of good things lined up, but there's still a ton of unknowns of how this whole transition process is just going to like lay out. And for me, what's I've been struggling with is trying to enjoy the present and the time that I have now, because I really haven't had this time in a very, very long time. Honestly, probably since like high school, if I'm being honest with myself. And like, it's just weird to have all this time now. And we're so hyper focused on type A, figuring everything out, having the perfect outcome, that all I think about is the unknowns, or what if this, what if that, what if like, oh my gosh, point A, all these different pivots.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, I wish I was just like, hey, I got this time off. I'm probably never going to have this opportunity again until I actually retire when I'm older. Like, let's just like enjoy it and like not worry about the unknowns.
Why do you think that's hard to turn off?
I just think, dude, it's, for me at least, I'm the type of guy that like loves to like be as prepared as possible and have a plan and just like execute the plan. And some guys are different with like the unknowns and like, hey, I don't really care, or not that they don't care, but they're a little bit more carefree about that in that process. I've just always been very like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. In order to do those things, I need to do X, Y, Z. And so I'm basically have done X, Y, Z, and now I'm waiting for the thing, if that makes sense.
It does. I I asked my buddy last weekend if he feels like he has a responsibility to solve everyone's problems, right? Like, do you know that feeling of like, if there is a problem, it is mine to solve. I think it's a nature of probably your path professionally, but do you think you have a little bit of that in you?
I think so. And also, like, we're also coming from a very self-deprecating business. And so I think that that's also a big part of this, of like, hey, if this transition fails, like, I'm a failure. And that's not a fair way to look at it. That I'm not saying that's a fair way to look at it. But what I'm trying to get at, though, is like, we are so competitive that we look at it that way, if that makes any sense.
It does. But, I mean, you're kind of at a spot where you don't get to say we anymore.
No, yeah, it's me.
So how do you want to look at it?
How I want to look at it is really just let go more and just understand that I've done everything I can to put myself in a good position to transition, and really just like work on, myself, to be honest with you. And that's something that, if I'm being completely honest, like a lot of times, like my own health came secondary to our job. Physical fitness for me personally, like embarrassed to say, but like definitely that fell off. And those are all things I'm like slowly trying to build back up to. But, like one of the things that I think is super hard to do in our job is like carving out time for yourself. And obviously a super time, like we don't get a lot of time in our job, but some people are better at it than others. But I think that for me, like that's something that I like really wish that I did in my military life. And I'm trying to buy back some of that time, or not that time, but some of those things that I really did not do a good job of, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it totally does. What else does letting go look like? Right? Like, obviously Buddha sits under the tree and Bruce Lee like water, but like, what does consciously letting go look like for you? Are there practices you're working on, or is it so new?
I won't like make this like a religious podcast, but I am Catholic.
You can make it whatever you want.
No, I mean, and like, dude, like spiritually for me, like I've been trying to like really like pray more, if I'm being honest with you. And just like know that, God has a plan for me and our family, and just like give it up to him. But, it's still like one of those things where it's like, have I done everything that I can? Right. I'm just not one of those guys that sits on the sidelines very well, kind of like waiting for my ticket to get punched. But what's sad though is I can sit here all day and come up with every scenario possible, right? But it's not really that productive. But it's crazy though. It's like, and this is like what I was going to kind of lead to off a segue, but it kind of ties back to this point, is that we're so good at giving other people advice that like we don't even like listen to our own advice. Isn't that funny? It's like we're so good at like, oh yeah, hey, let me look at Joe's problems. Hey Joe, I'll tell you how to do this, and this, and like how you're all fucked up, right? But like, hey, look at my own problems, Ryan. You're a fat piece of shit. You should go for a run. You know what I mean? Like I guess that's kind of like my point. It's like some of that stuff's like it's hard to self-diagnose, or you can self-diagnose and know it's in the background, but it's like I guess harder to medicate. That's a weird way of saying it, but I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever done a meditation of like, or had the thought of like, what advice would you give yourself right now? And if not, you want to try it?
I think, that's a really good question. The best advice I would give myself right now would be enjoy the moment that you have, the time that you have. And that's a whole nother subject. I think time is our most valuable asset that we have, because you're not going to get it back. And to explain a little bit more, I'm on basically terminal leave, so I'm getting paid to hang out or do whatever I want. And so in that process, like really try to make this a rejuvenational, enjoy my time, but also like, bounce back from kind of coming off of I would say a fairly aggressive 12-year career in the Navy. And the transition ahead with, those challenges as well to kind of like rebuild and repurpose. But probably like, in like a couple simple words would be like, chill the fuck out would be like probably the medicine or the what the doctor would order for myself. But again, that's kind of difficult.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes just hearing you're allowed to.
Yeah.
You're allowed to now. Like the Sisyphus stone is on your back, but like you're allowed to take a pause for a second. It'll be there waiting for you. As you tell yourself that, do you want to listen to that advice?
I do. But But at the same time, I feel like I second guess that advice because it's like I go back to like, well, what have I missed? You know what I mean? And I think that that's just like this like constant battle. And I think it's probably fairly common for a lot of us, but for me, it's like I've never had the opportunity to chill per se. So it's tough to like, hey, just enjoy the moment, enjoy the vacation, enjoy the whatever, and not think about, hey, have I done X, Y? Have I checked all the boxes? Have I done all the things that I could do to set myself up?
Yeah, and nature of the job that you are in is always scanning, right? Scanning for threats or scanning for things that could fall out, and your brain has pathways that have carved canyons deep to tell you to keep scanning. Yeah, that's a tough, new muscle memory to form. Does your wife agree with your chill out paradigm?
Dude, it's funny. She's trying to get me to chill out. It's hilarious. She's like, you just need to be like kind of a sack of shit and just hang out and do whatever you want for a little bit. But yeah, it's funny. I think she's definitely seen. I've definitely come down from like where I was in the TO tour, but still like kind of just like always like looking for what do I need to do to enable this transition.
So Monday, 2 days from now, what does your day look like?
So I've been trying to run in the mornings, to give the listeners a little bit profile of me. I was an offensive lineman, so I'm a bigger guy. So running's never been never been my strong suit. But I did run in college a little bit, and in flight school I ran. So it's been good, like getting back into that. And then what I'll do is I'll come back. We live close to the beach, so which is awesome. So I'll come back, do like, I don't know, maybe a 2 mile run. And then I'll take our little corgi to the beach, and then I'll walk with him on the beach. He loves just herding crabs on the beach. So I'll take him out, and then, dude, it's kind of been like a very therapeutic way to start the day, if I'm being completely honest with you.
Probably for the first time in your life you've ever been able to start the day like that.
Yeah, dude, it's been pretty rad, and it's like I'm not on like this like crazy schedule where I have to get up at like 5 a.m. to do it. I can get up whenever and do all this, but it's been really nice. And then generally throughout the rest of the day, I've been doing like random transition tasks, and then some other like intern type stuff. But recently I've been trying to, when I have the time, I've either tried to go do things that I want to do, which is kind of hard to like force yourself to do. But
what kind of hobbies? What kind of things?
Oh man, so two hobbies. I've started roasting coffee. Yeah. So
how SoCal of you?
How SoCal of me? I know. I'm a granola guy. I drive a Subaru Forester too, but the coffee thing's fun, man. It's just different. There's so many different profiles of taste and how you roast the different coffees. It's actually crazy how coffee will taste very different if you have it hot or cold, especially when you freshly roast it. It's almost like tea. So that's been a fun like little side thing. The second hobby is probably gonna creep some folks out, but I've been doing some composting with worms. So they're
What?
called, yeah, man, some red wigglers.
Okay. What's the setup?
So, so we have this bag, and it's actually in our living room. It's hilarious. Yeah. It's next to our bar, of all places.
Of course, sure. I mean, the coffee grounds have to go right in, right?
Yep. And so, dude, it's funny. My wife's like, "Oh, I think it'd be like kind of cool to get into composting." And so I like nerd out on like different types of composting. And I was looking at, it's called Vermos composting. And so I was like, all right, cool. So I like kind of like started like nerding out on this, and it's kind of like a nice like break from work to like just zone in on this like random thing. I'm like, all right, I'm getting in the weeds on this one. And but I think the coolest part about it is so much of like what you can put in the bag is stuff that like we just normally throw away.
Like what?
So like cardboard, for instance, so like all your Amazon packages, like I bought a shredder, so I can shred the Amazon package, and then basically I can give that to the worms as like kind of like a bedding, but eventually that will erode and the worms will eat it. Other things, let's see. We actually bought, dude, this is crazy. We bought a second machine that's called a wrinkle. So you can put green waste, so things like banana peels, kind of like
Eggshells,
yeah,
fruit
eggshells, anything like
rinds,
that.
yeah.
So basically, it's a machine that will kind of decompose green waste, and so basically it makes this like brown matter after time. It basically is hot, so it does a lot of the decomposing for you. And it's funny, don't quote me on any of this. I'm not super smart with it, but basically, the worms eat the mold. They don't actually eat the raw product. So what it does is you decompose all that matter, and so basically you put 1 part cardboard to 1 part wrinkle matter. After it chills, you let it sit for a couple days, and you just kind of let the worms chew on that.
Is there an end state? Like, did the worms transition to the garden? What's the flow?
So that's not necessarily the intent. The worms basically are super stoked in the bag, just eating either wrinkle or any sort of organic mold.
The happiest worms in the world.
Yeah, of course. I'm a novice worm farmer, so I'm just surprised I haven't killed them yet. But the process is, and I actually haven't harvested them. I started this back in April. But the bag that I have, it basically is supposed to cure all the worm casting, so basically worm poop, which is really good for soil. It's arguably the best soil in the world. So you're putting all this waste in. The worms eat the mold, and then they basically poop worm castings, and the worm castings is like really good for your soil. And we're not like super gardeners or anything, but
Grow coffee beans.
Could grow coffee beans. I know. I could. We're not there yet.
So, whoa, dude. So what do you think when you're doing those things, what do you think you're tapping into in yourself?
Dude, I don't know. That's a great question. I think it's just like a cool way. It's almost like an escape. You know what I mean? Like especially when I was working, it was like, man, I can just like kind of like do these simple tasks and they're not that hard. And the thing I like about both of them is in theory, I get a product out of them. You know what I mean? So like it's like something simple that I'm doing. It's not super time consuming, and I can kind of like zone out and just like do my coffee and the worms, honestly, dude, is super easy. I feed them like once a week. It's not like
training for kids.
No. Man, I wish my kids were as easy as the worms. Maybe I'll just stick to worms.
I mean, what do you feel when you sit down and have that cup of coffee? Is it just like, is it still analyzing your credibility, if you will, or is it distant from that?
Dude, I do it more for fun. So, sometimes if I like over roast something, I'm like, man, I probably missed this one. I think what's really cool though is just like how the different varietals and the different beans and the origins have different tastes. And
Origins always blow my mind.
it's crazy, dude. Like you'll taste like things like fruit or yogurt, and I'm like, am I even drinking coffee?
Yeah, the
and
African fruit notes, like blueberry notes.
crazy yogurt, peach.
Are you a pour over guy? What's the finish?
No, so I'm not a pour over guy. Dude, we have this ridiculously nice Jura coffee machine where we basically push a button and it makes you a cup of coffee. But I think I already mentioned this earlier. I think what I really get a trip out of is like how the coffee can literally taste completely different, hot or cold. So if I make that coffee that has all those blueberry notes, yogurt flavors, if I do it cold, it could taste like chocolate or caramel or all these different flavors. So to me, I just think that's so fascinating.
Well, go with me on this metaphor. You are in a process of hot and cold.
Yeah.
You got a couple activities that cool you down, bring a different thing into your life, and then you have your hot that you're trying to turn off. So I mean, you're in the spiritual sphere of running the coffee is processing you.
That's a
Yeah, we can leave that one.
Dr. Joe here.
No, we'll leave that one on the side.
I mean that was deep, bro.
The worm poop is you.
The worm poop is me.
What when you look at the transition, how many years what are you all said and done at right now? Years in?
I'll be at just over 12 years when I get out.
Okay. So when you look at when your bell started to ring and the realization of that change, was that really like now? Or when did that start to register for you? And again, it'll be specific to your experience in the military, but for anybody, right? For any career, overlaid this kind of the same question.
So I think kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, for me, I was so consumed with my current job and setting myself up with the time that I had for my transition, like doing applications and on all the interviews and all that prep. That was like my free time. And then my job was like everything else. Sure. Let's say most of everything, right? Sure. So I was so consumed by my job, and the light at the end of the tunnel was just it being done. And I was so excited to get to the light. And I was like, okay, I'm going to continue working hard, because that was something consciously when I signed up to do this. I was like, I am going to work as hard as I can until
all the way to the finish line.
All the way to the finish line. I don't want to be the guy that was like, oh, he gave up in the last whatever, even last day, last 2 weeks, last month, whatever it is. But what's funny, man, is when I hit the finish line, it took me like maybe a couple weeks to like realize like, hey man, this is like, it's done. And I was still flying a little bit on the flight line, doing some guest work, and I was doing a lot of military admin transition stuff. So I was still around it a lot. But like now I'm like, effectively, I could never go. If I wanted to, I would never have to go back to Oceana or go back to where I was working. And I think in that process, I started to really like analyze. I was like, wow, like this was a big part of my life. It was a big part of my identity. Being a naval officer, even like it's just a big part of like who we are. And I think that's like where I had my discovery of like, man, this has been a big part of my identity. And when I was in the moment, I never really thought about what that would have, like what impact that would have on me. I think maybe subconsciously in the moment, I knew that this was going to be a transition, but I never really gave it time or like thought or like meaningful thought of like, how is this going to affect me leaving? If that makes any sense.
It makes sense. And then what I'd say is, in the spirit of what we brought up earlier of how easy it is to give advice to others, as you do almost your after action now, because I remember working with you obviously over the last year. Is there something that could have been a forcing function to pay more attention to that? Or is there advice you would give if someone's feeling that for a job now?
So is your question more like if I was in my shoes a year from now or a year ago, what I would give myself advice on?
Yeah, that's a way we can frame it. Yeah. If knowing kind of what you know now and how like it was difficult to pay attention to.
Sure.
For someone in that spot you were in any facet of profession, facing that shift, is there a way you would offer advice or offer a way to approach that could have eased some of that? And I mean, the answer can be no, but just since you're now on the other side of it.
Well, because, I'm good at telling other people what to do, but I can't tell myself what to do. Dude, it's tough, right? Because again, I know everybody's super busy in their current jobs and their current roles. And so I think it's a balancing act and everybody's different. And you don't want to be like over consumed with the transition process and nuke it. But I do think it is important to at least acknowledge. And I think that's going to look differently for everybody, but at least maybe pay attention to that. I think the one piece of advice I would give other folks that are separating or changing jobs or changing whatever you're doing is it comes way faster than you think it's going to come. So, and where I'm going with that is like make time for yourself. It's really hard to do, and especially when you're in a super demanding role. But do things that you need to do to set yourself up for your transition, right? Because no one else is going to do that for you. You are your own best advocate, and so I think that's something that like I think I did a good job on some pillars, and I did a poor job on some pillars. But I would just say like the last 2 years went by really quick, and I would say I was fairly proactive with that process. I'd say I was probably on par, maybe slightly ahead, but still, it comes really quick. And something else too is I think, you have to give yourself some grace in this process. Some people are still discovering what they want to do, and that's totally cool. Again, it was like very focused, and I was lucky I had this like very specific thing I want to do. But still, it's even though it's very specific, like how I get there and the journey of how I actually get to that point is going to look very different. And I have to accept that I don't have much control of how I get to that point.
Yeah. For the first time.
Right. So that again is like very challenging. So I think giving yourself grace, and that probably is like the medicine I would probably prescribe myself, and just understanding that like so much of this is outside of your control, and just understanding that you can only do the best you can. Yeah. As long as you can go to bed knowing I tried my best to do X, Y, or whatever your process is for your transition, I did everything I can. Like, you should be able to rest your head on that.
Yeah.
But it's hard for us, right? At least for me, I second guess myself, where I think, hey, like, what else could I be doing? But that's definitely one piece of the equation. I think for folks that are married too, like, this is some like really like sage advice I got from somebody that did a transition roughly like 10-ish years ago, is you want to be aligned with your spouse. And so, and break that down a little bit more is like, where do you want to live? What are your priorities? Is it money? Is it time? Is it location? Is it being near your family? And the answer is going to be different for everybody. But it's incredibly important for you to be aligned with your spouse, and make that a priority for whatever you do. And the second part of that is kind of what I was talking about earlier, is giving yourself grace, is understand or explaining to your spouse that this is not going to be a perfect transition. And explain it in a way where it's like, hey, like, I don't have the stability like I had in the Navy, or like I know I'm going to PCS in 2 years. And just like for me, and my wife's super chill, I'm very blessed, but like I think a lot of people don't, and this is, maybe I shouldn't say this, I'll just say it. I think a lot of people don't do that. And they're in the transition and they think they're doing the best thing for their family. And then mom's not happy. And then basically if you find yourself in a weird spot. So, I think overall, like, you will be happier as a family if you have that conversation early and often. And it can change, right? And that's the thing too, right? This whole transition process, and I think that's something that we and I'll speak for at least myself, struggle with, is that we think we have to have it all figured out. And it's like, it's not going to be all figured out, right? Like, we're just kind of sitting here with hey, hire me please, and that's kind of the best we can do. And you can't have that all figured out, right? And so there are going to be changes to the path of how you get to your final destination. And so I think it's just important to give yourself grace, but like have that conversation with your significant other, your spouse, so that way they understand, like, hey, this might not happen right away, or hey, there's going to be some, like, you know what I mean? So I found that like it's super simple advice, but like
you have to do it.
That individual like thought they were doing the right thing, and long story short, the job took them to a different city, and their spouse was upset because they wanted to live in a different city than where the job was taking them. So then they had to completely pivot the whole plan. And he was like, dude, I wish I would have just like sat down with my spouse and like, hey, what do you want? Yeah. And like, again, I think that looks different for everybody.
Sure. And only sharing as much specifics as you'd like for your follow-on life. What did that conversation look like for you guys, and what you want to prioritize?
So for me, I wanted as much flexibility as possible. I wanted to have as much time, buy back as much time as I can. And again, I alluded to it earlier. I think time is our most valuable asset, and there's a million different ways you can spend it. And so my goal is to basically buy back as much time and prioritize time with my family, as well as potentially spin off and do something else that I want to do. Like maybe it's a small business, maybe it's working part-time for somebody else remotely. So for me, that was like probably like the biggest driver for our priorities of like what we want to do next, if that makes any sense.
It makes total sense. Where does your faith fit in all of this, right? This is a lot of head work. Like, where does the heart and faith, how does that look for you? Where do you anchor on what you believe in? Is it in the room? Did it need to be more in the room? How does that look in terms of overlaying on some of these decisions and thoughts?
Whew. Well, I'll be honest. I think at a lot of this, again, it kind of goes back to all the unknowns. And so I think for me, my faith has been a big part of this, and just knowing that it's all going to work out and I'm doing the best I can. And just, sometimes you just kind of got to, do your spiritual stuff and meditate or do whatever, or pray. And I have found a lot of relief in that. And on like a segue, like I was sent to a location that was very isolating. And I was so consumed with my job at the time. I was actually deployed when I found out. You were there with me. And I didn't really realize how remote of a location this was. And meanwhile, my wife is a saint and is like packing up our house. I come home from the good course and the house is packed. And it's like, cool, now we get to drive across the country from Virginia Beach to an awesome place called China Lake, California. And I was so consumed with like preparing for gun, doing the gun course, obviously super demanding, as you're well aware with your background, but I never really had thought about how challenging this was going to be for my family and how challenging this is going to be for me personally. And I'll never forget, I got there and I'm standing there and we lived on base and I'm like looking around and I'm like, what did I get myself into? And I'm just like, Boyd, I really screwed up. I'm like, my wife, she's a true hero for going with me out there. And that was a really challenging 2 years. And I think for me spiritually, I really grew a lot being in a challenging environment. Professionally, it was a really cool job, but being in an environment where you're so remote, it was so challenging. It was very challenging for me. It was more challenging for my wife. And I think where I'm tying this back into is like, that's like where my faith and all the unknowns really kind of started. Like, man, like, what am I doing here? I'm literally in the middle of the Mojave Desert. Like, holy moly, this is crazy. If I like have a serious health issue, I'm probably dead. Like literally, like I mean, obviously we're young and healthy, right? But like that's how remote this location is. And so I guess where I'm getting at is like, again, I should prescribe my own medicine, but like I really turned to my faith a lot into those challenging times, and it turned out to be an awesome tour, and we were there in and out. But like, dude, like just kind of like that whole process. And then, dude, even getting yanked out of there. I had 2 weeks notice to move out of the middle of nowhere. And so I'm like, how am I going to do this? So people are like, oh, you're going to have to move yourselves. And I'm like, no, we can't do that. And so, and it all came together, right? Like we got movers, everything came to plan. I mean, dude, I was praying a lot, I'll be honest with you. And dude, I was super stressed out. My wife was working. She works. So it's like, I can't ask her to just give up what she's doing to figure all this stuff out. But again, I guess where I'm trying to tie this back to is like with my own transition of like faith and stuff is, I think maybe part of like the challenge in this is I have a lot of time to think about these things, right? Where when I was in a full afterburner in my job, I didn't have time to think about these things. I only had the time to think about, holy moly, I have to get this application in, or what are like the bare minimum things. And so now I just have this excess of time to now think about all these things or all these anxieties that I have. And I think for me, it's like I'm my own worst enemy in terms of creating like all these monsters in my own head that probably aren't even really a thing. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But I think in a lot of ways, I wish I would just kind of like, hey man, just like let's not think about the unknowns, or like, hey, let's just chill out and like enjoy it. But I know that was like a long way to answer your question, but like it's kind of been like a faith journey for me and like my career, but like pivoting back to like, and that was only like 2-ish years ago. I moved to China like 4-ish years ago. So like, it's relatively recent. So,
Yeah.
And I've been doing like a lot of soul searching on that stuff too. Like, hey man, like that was like a tough time. And like, we're back in Virginia Beach, the promised land. And, it's all worked out. So,
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to solve everything, right?
No.
There can be unknowns.
There can be unknowns, and there will be unknowns. And so I think that that's kind of like just been like the challenge for me is personally is just like, how do I like let go?
Yeah.
Because again, like, and I feel like we've talked about this already, but like we're just so used to like being in control, or like maybe not necessarily being in control, but like trying to control an outcome.
When you desire the letting go, which, we can continue to talk about, is it because you don't like the hyperactivity of needing to feel in control? Like, do you want to turn that dial down because the way the dial up makes you feel? If that question makes sense. Like the letting go, right? What's the why? Is it just because you haven't seen what it's like to let go? Or is there something in you that's like, I want to tap into this?
No, dude, that's a good point. Or maybe I don't fully. I'll go with this on my own vector, I guess. I think for me, dude, it's like I have been so hyper focused on get to the finish line of my transition that I don't like the unknowns on that path. You know what I mean? Or like like for me personally, those unknowns cause anxiety because it's like I have this plan, right? This perfect plan. And for me, it's like, what if I get this like curveball and now I'm not going towards that plan?
Sure.
But dude, even like in my life, here I go on another segue.
Come on.
So like, dude, I was in high school, or I was in middle school rather, and I really wanted to go to this private school because I wanted to go to the Naval Academy or the Air Force Academy, and I was like, this private prep school is like the check in the box to go to that school. Oh, by the way, the public high school I went was like one of the best public high schools in the country. So anyways, I wanted to go to this private high school, and I did not get in. And I remember I was devastated. I felt like I was a failure. And everything worked out. Same thing kind of with college. Like I wanted to go to the Naval Academy. I didn't get in there, and I got in the Merchant Marine Academy. And I'll be honest, like probably the first at least year, I kind of felt like a failure. Turned out like Kings Point was an awesome experience. If I had to do it all over again, I'd go to Kings Point again. So I think for me, even though I have seen things that like I'm like, I have to have this thing. I have to go to this private high school. I have to go to the Naval Academy. And I still have gotten everything I've wanted. I mean, you can even look at like what I wanted even after our JO tour. Like I wanted to go to Fallon, and here I'm the fat redhead that went to China Lake to go burn.
This is why I asked about the faith.
Yeah,
right?
and I think you're right. Like everything ends up working out. And like honestly, dude, like I'm so thankful. Everything's worked out better than I could have ever even prescribed. And so that's just been a challenge for me is to like just hit the I believe button that everything's going to work out. And I think it will. But again, it's just this like weird, I think the other challenge, man, is it kind of all hits you at once, right? You're transitioning. This job has been our identity for so long. And then you have all these other unknowns stacked on that, right? And then so I haven't second guessed my decision to get out, but I have been thinking about what if I stay? What if, you know what I mean? And so, I think for me, it's hard to just like, dude, I've all the cards on the table. I've done all the things I can. Just let it ride. Enjoy this time that I have where I'm getting paid.
Yep.
Enjoy this time that I have to continue learning other things.
Yeah.
Enjoy this time that I have to reconnect with people like we were talking about earlier. And I love networking and meeting people and like getting to know people better, learning different things, learning more about what people have done. And like, I genuinely love that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that I have been trying to, now it's kind of a double-edged sword. Part of me has like, dude, do I just go full send and just like dive into this like business thing that I'm looking at? Because in a weird way, right, it fills that time void. So I don't think about the unknowns as much. But I do think there's a balance of like, dude, I probably do need to chill and like recoup a little bit. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'm not your therapist, but yeah, I agree with the second part.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that there's some pot calling the kettle black there because I understand what you are saying, but I always go back to motive. So like the motive in wanting to dive in earlier, you said, and I wanted to challenge you on it. You said like the coffee and the worms are a nice escape. So personally, if I found myself sitting and kind of saying that about something, I would say, well, what from? And if it comes back to escaping the need to know the answers, right? Then I know like, okay, getting a little bit to the soft spot, keep my finger on that pulse. Why am I so attached to the need to know? And honestly, a lot of it comes back, all of it comes back to this, but it's ego. It's I've been comfortable knowing.
Totally.
But you just gave me 3 massive iterative examples of when you thought you knew and some other bigger spirit and energy knew better for you.
100%, dude.
And I personally would say, as someone that knows you, it's this.
I agree.
It's between the ears because you have a big smile no matter where you go. You know, you welcome people no matter where you go. There are people that adapt happily and positively, and there are people that adapt negatively. You know, so I think I definitely agree with the chill out diagnosis. And I think in there is where you really start to tap into that motive of the why for the drive and the need and the solve and the what and the what and the what. Because I think that's one of the hardest things for anyone getting out of the service specifically, and likely other jobs, but I can't, I don't know, to turn off. Mm-hmm. That need to know, that need to solve, that always constant, I have to have an end state, is what I'm fascinated in knowing, you know, people's processes in working through that.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Like again, for me, like the chill prescription is definitely 100% probably what I definitely need. And, you know, I'm grateful for the time that I've had. I've had about 6 weeks since maybe maybe 2-ish months, 6 weeks to 2 months of like, all right, I'm done with like my actual job. And so I was doing part-time stuff and I was still very active with like my transition stuff. And I'm kind of at the point now where it's like a lot of that stuff is like, you know, slowing down a little bit. So for me, I'm really trying to chill. Yeah. But again, I think it's kind of like opened up the door to time and thinking about this stuff. And you are 100% correct. It is all in my head. And I think you're right. Like the easy cocktail that we are so accustomed to, especially in our community, is just like, dude, let me go bury my head in the sand and just like work my ass off on something new. And then I will achieve something, or it's not even like whatever. I think I'm getting somewhere. But in reality, it's like, that's probably not what's really what the doctor ordered.
Yeah. So I guess, you know, a year from now, when I get one of those Ryan, you know, those Raffo big bear hugs, what will you know, as you sit now, a year from now, what is required to evolve for you as a human?
I think the biggest thing for me, man, is just kind of I think the biggest thing, and we've been talking about it a lot, but it just kind of like take it as it comes. Or like my dad told me when I spoke to him on the phone earlier this week, he's like, sometimes you just have to let life come to you. And instead of trying to like always control everything or like think that you have the answer, it's like, you know, obviously do the best you can, but you know, just slow things down a little bit and see what's what comes to you, what makes sense at the time. And I think for me, probably like the biggest thing I need to like really work on in the next year is just like letting go a little bit of like all those things. All these things have to be perfect, right? They don't, right? I talked earlier, like you have to give yourself a lot of grace in this whole process. But like more or less just like trying to let go, enjoy the ride. I look back a lot. I've had a phenomenal career, but you know, one thing I wish I had done is like enjoyed the moment a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like it's such a cool opportunity, but I feel like we're always like worried about the bazillion things that we haven't done or checking our email or whatever. But like it just, I wish like I would have just like taken a deep breath and just like, man, what a beautiful day. I flew an airplane. I got to do something like people dream of doing, but we get caught up in so many like little things and all these other tasks that you have to do, right? But I just wish that like I would have just like, like I'm doing this. I'm living the childhood dream.
Yeah.
I'm doing the thing I've dreamed about doing.
Yeah. And the follow-up to that question will be, how will you know you've achieved that state?
Ooh. Well, it's funny. My brain went immediately to having kids, so I'll probably not have it.
Oh, well, that's cool.
You know, I think for me too that's kind of like the end goal of this all is like, you know, start a family. Obviously, kids are going to take up a lot of my time, so maybe my concerns are not my career aspirations, but probably more for like my family.
Yeah, it's less you. Definitely less you.
Less me, right? And I'm not trying to come off as like all this is about me. A lot of the things I'm stressed out about are more to set up the family and all that stuff.
Understood.
But yeah, I think that's and I think really, this is deep, but I think kids are going to offer a much bigger perspective on what life's all about. You know what I mean? Like we get so caught up in like, you know, or like social media or like, or not even social media, but like society today shows you what success is. They define that for you. And as I've gotten older, I have learned that yes, having a lot of money is great. It buys you freedom. It's awesome. But at the end of the day, if you have no time to spend it with the people you enjoy being around, then like, why do you have all this money? So I what I'm trying to get back to the kids thing is that like family is like really everything. And I think that's for me, like probably we haven't really talked about this, but like part of the thing, or the thing I'm going to miss the most about the Navy is the people. It's not the flying, it's the people. And I think like starting a family is going to transition my thoughts more to them more than myself. Not trying to sound like I've been selfish this entire time.
No, I understand. Do you think you personally feel like you have a little bit more growth to go before you find yourself in that spot? And I only ask that as a guy who has told me, you know, solution-based, got to get to a finish line, but then also said like, there's no good time for kids. I mean, the reason I'm talking to myself here as well is like, there's no greater unknown than reproduction.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. There's been thoughts that I've had. It's like, man, have I screwed up? Should I have started earlier? You know, should we have already had kids?
Worthless thought.
Yeah, no, I know, but like I guess like my point is like, why not start right now?
Sure,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
You know, it's like I haven't thought about it that way. You know, we're probably conservative in the fact that like we want to be in a stable position to have kids, but not that we're not in a stable position. My wife has a really good job, but in terms of like living in a stable place and not being in this constant transition. Yeah. So I guess short answer is like, I've never thought about it that way. The one thing I would be scared of that question is I don't want to like think that I should never have kids, right?
Well, you can, with the brains we have, you could never be prepared enough.
Right. So,
and then perfection gets in the way of progress.
Totally.
And that's a whole different journey.
Totally. And I think, dude, like maybe I'm way off, but I just think that children are going to give me a much different perspective on what's important. You know what I mean? And it's going to be being with them, being with my wife, trying to raise them in a responsible way, teach them values, you know, and like actually be a part of their lives. Because something I hear all the time from folks is like, man, kids grow up so quickly. And I don't know about you, man, but like, I feel like the older I've gotten, like time just goes by faster and faster and faster. And it's like, oh, wow, dude, like I'm 35, like I'm old. Not really, but like,
I understand.
you know what I mean? Like 5 years ago, I was like, dude, I can take on the world and like do all these things. And so I think that that's something that kids, I think, are going to keep you grounded, or at least keep myself grounded in what I think is important.
Sure.
And just kind of bring it back to the basics. And not that I don't have the basics now with my wife. Like obviously she comes first, but I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I mean, for guys like us, it's kind of just guessing, you know, like you're in that you were like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know what you mean. I mean, I know what you mean for the theory of it, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a very cool answer. I think it shows, I think it's cool to see that almost snap to the front of your brain. It kind of shows where you're at, where you're aiming, where you're going. It's awesome.
I mean, ultimately, like, what would be really cool is I find myself in a position where I can scale my jobs to a point where I get to work when I want. And maybe I take a little bit of a financial cut on that, or maybe I don't. But I'm in a position where I get to go to my kids' sporting events.
Yeah.
I'm in a position where I can drop a trip to go do something I want to go do with my family, but I still have in the financial position where we can do a cool trip somewhere.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And I think that that's like kind of the perfect balance of like what I'm looking for. You know, when I was younger, man, I thought I wanted to be like a gazillionaire. And I thought that was like
success.
That was success. You know what I mean? And like, just like the Ryan Raffo is a millionaire or bazillionaire or whatever, like that would make me happy, knowing that other people knew that I was a bazillionaire. And now it's like, as I've gotten older, I'm like, dude, I don't really care about that.
Yeah, sure.
Even if I was a bazillionaire, I'd probably would want people to think I was a bum. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really, that's, you know what I mean?
Well, all right. Well, to bring a tail end of the story here, if you had like, I think I asked Dave this question, but like one or two sentences, you know, a shot of someone's working on making a decision to get out of whatever they're doing, not at all specific to the military, from where you sit now, you know, what's your elevator pitch love that you would offer? You know, what would you say?
I'm limited to 2 sentences.
Knowing you, probably not. It's got to be tight. It's got to be tight.
Let's see. 2 sentences.
They are struggling with the unknowns.
I think realistically, man, like, it's something that my father told me. It's like, shoot for the stars, and like the fallout's still great, right? Like, you can plan and do the best you can, or like, but at the end of the day, if you're doing the best you can, like, everything at the end of the day is going to work out. And again, a lot easier said than done, but have faith in the process, and understand that, you know, whatever spiritual or religion or whatever you practice, like, you know, for me, I found that turning to that has helped a ton as well. I know that was more than 2 sentences.
No, it's solid. I'll grant you some grace.
Thank you. I'll say one other thing, and you can cut it or put it somewhere else. But like the two things I learned in primary flight school, and I think this is like true to anything we do, is there's really only 2 things in life that you can control. It's your preparation, which obviously is very broad, and your attitude. Everything else, like, you really can't control. But if you show up prepared, and again, that looks like different in a lot of different scenarios, and you have a good attitude, that's all you really can do. And outside of that, I know it's all up in your head, but like if you show up and just think of those two things, hey, have I done everything I can? Have I prepared, or have I given all my effort? And if I have a good attitude, like, I think the world is your oyster, man.
That's sick. Dude, that's awesome. That's great advice. A lot of really good advice that I'm grateful for. Right, dude, thanks for coming over, man.
Dude, thanks for the opportunity. I hope I hope somebody takes something away from this.
I'm sure they will.
From my jargon.
Dude, I'm sure they will. I really appreciate you taking the time. It means a lot to share and to listen, and honestly just get to catch up outside of, 03 TAC 84, TAC 1, TAC Lima, outside of the confines of a Nimitz class aircraft carrier.
Yes.
So, dude, I appreciate you taking the time, brother. And I wish you the best in this next chapter, and cannot wait to see where you land and, the future little gingers running around.
Oh, man.
It's going to be amazing. So I wish you the best.
Maybe we do this like a year from now. See how we landed.
Same contract with Dave, so we'll have you back, dude. I can't wait.
All right.
Thanks, brother.
All right, thanks, Dave.
We didn't talk for a while. For a while. As seasons changed, I became so rearranged and nearly fell down.